All right, guys, this is the directions video for how to do your sun diagram. All right, so you've got all your notes to tell you what these 6 parts are. So I'm not going to go over what the 6 parts are, but I am going to show you how to label your diagram. Okay, so you've already got a couple of the parts of the sun drawn here, and I wanted to give you a base so that you didn't have to create the whole thing, because I know that's a little bit difficult on your Chromebooks. So I went ahead and created that for you. Okay, so these first 3 on the list over here, the core, the corona, and the photosphere, are already drawn for you. So they already exist on your diagram. So you don't have to draw those. You just need to label them. Okay, so when it says draw the parts and layers that are not already present, you're going to draw the last 3 on this list, because the first 3 are already there on your diagram. Okay, and the second one, it says label each of the 6 parts and layers using these text boxes. So when you go to label your sun diagram, when you click on it to edit it, just like always, you're going to be able to come on here and create these things on your diagram and then label them. Okay, so when I'm going to go label it, I'll start with the core, just because it's the first one that's on here. I can put that one on top of the core. That one's really easy to label. Okay, now the corona is a little bit different. The corona you might have to use an arrow for. So if you come up here to the line tool, you can select an arrow. So what you're going to do is you're going to click wherever, and then it creates an arrow for you, and then you can drag it and resize it and let it point to whatever you need it to point to. Okay, and you can always make those arrows a little bit bigger with these tools that are up at the top. You can make them a little bit thicker, and it'll make that arrow bigger, so it's a little bit easier for you to see when you go back and study. Now, once you've labeled the things on there, once you've labeled the stuff on your sun, once you've drawn those things and labeled them on here, make sure you hit this save and close button. If you don't hit save and close, it will not save your work. Okay, so when you hit save and close, it's got part of my labels on there now. Okay, so we've already done 1 and 2. Number 3, it says make sure it is obvious what you are drawing and what each label is pointing to. So that's why these arrows are going to be your best friend when you're labeling this diagram. Now, the core is a very small part, so you can set that one on top of it. But when you're pointing to the corona, or if you draw a sunspot and you're pointing to the sunspot, you need to make sure you know what you're labeling. Okay, so a lot of times some of y'all are putting a label on something but not actually pointing to what it actually is. So when you go back to use these diagrams or use your notes to study, it makes your life a little bit difficult. So make sure while you're creating this diagram, you're using your notes, you're double checking everything, because I've given you all of this information. If you go back and watch the sun parts and layers lesson, or if you go back to those Google Slides with all the notes on there, that will help you a lot on this sun diagram. I'm taking the information that they're supposed to be teaching, I'm taking these standards, and I'm putting them into bite-sized pieces so it's easier for you, okay? I promise you, if you use my notes and my lessons, my assignments, and my classwork will be a lot easier for you, okay? I've noticed in person, in class at least, that people are trying to use Google a lot. And while Google is a great tool, sometimes it makes things a little bit more difficult. So please use the notes and lessons that I have given you. Okay, so I'm making this look like the diagram that I gave you in the notes and the lessons. I'm making things a little bit easier for you so it's more obvious what we're labeling and what we're looking for on this diagram. Okay, so number 4 right here, it says if you are confused, go back to the video lesson and the notes on Google Classroom. And I cannot emphasize that enough. That's why I create that stuff for you, okay? So you need to draw the parts and layers that are not already on here. So I told you that the core, the corona, and the photosphere are already on the diagram. So I've given you half of the diagram, so you just have to draw the last 3. Now you do have to label all 6 of them, but you only have to draw the last 3 because I went ahead and created the sun for you. Okay, so make sure that you're being careful. Make sure you've got everything. Make sure you come back through these and make sure that you've done everything that needs to be done on this diagram before you submit it. All right.